Welcome to the Co-Host Bros Podcast, where we break down everything short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, and building a profitable hospitality business. Whether you're a host, investor, or property manager, we share real strategies, real insights, and real experiences to help you scale smarter and grow faster. Let's dive in.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Co-Host Bros Podcast. My name is Matt Codd. I'm here with my good buddy Austin Spitz, and today we have one hell of a guest for you, Michael Elefante. What is going on, Mr. Elefante?
What's going on, guys? Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Ready to dive into it. But looks like we lost Matt, but he'll figure out a way to get back in here. But anyways, Mike, how you doing today, man?
Doing great. Yeah, doing great. Just having got some plans coming up here just after the 4th of July. So getting ready for some vacation with the family, staying busy with my 2 kids and everything else we got going on. But life's been good.
For sure, man. So let's jump into it, man. How did you get into the short-term rental space? Give us a little background on that and kind of what it is you do and what you're working on today.
Yeah. So long story short, I was a college athlete. I was hoping to play professional baseball. When that dream kind of came to a screaming halt, I just started to apply for work like most people do out of college and found myself in an entry-level position, moved out to Dallas, Texas. I was doing some sales work, cold calling, just in a gray cubicle, pretty gloom. So I figured, if I made more money, life would be a little more flexible. I'd be happier, all that good stuff, the whole American dream. And so I did that for several years and realized that incremental, increase in, salary or compensation, life, got a little easier, but it didn't really bring me much fulfillment. And I realized that I was trading more time for more money. So my wife and I sat down one day and just started diving into different ways we could create passive income, build wealth, and then eventually, hopefully, make our work optional. So fell in love with the short-term rental concept, got our first one in 2019. And after 4 properties in the first 16 months or so, we had enough income from those properties to quit our jobs. We quit, traveled in a camper van for a year, and never looked back after that. So today we own 10 and we're under contract on 2 more. The 10 will do well over $2 million a year in gross rental income. And then the next 2 will add on another maybe, $200,000 to $400,000 each in annual revenue. So just kind of stacking those as we go. And ever since we left work, I've had a ton of time flexibility to chase a lot of new passions or more of an entrepreneurial journey that I didn't expect to come in my life. So now own probably about 10 different businesses, all revolving around the short-term rental industry. We have, aside from our own properties, I also have an education business where we teach people really from around the world to get started in short-term rentals and scale their own business. A design firm, Summerlet Designs, where we exclusively design short-term rental properties across the USA. We're coming up on 1,000 properties designed over the past since launch 2.5 years ago, which is pretty awesome. And then we have a collective of businesses under one umbrella called the theRhis Collective. And in that we have a done for you Airbnb investment service. We work with a lot of high net worth, high income individuals. And then we have a ton of other kind of lines of business that we brought in house that are kind of revolving around that service, whether it's construction work, the brokerage side of the house for lending, also transacting on deals, and then property management. So that's how we got started and kind of where we're at today.
Yeah, so it sounds like vertical integration, like you got into the short-term rental space and multiple businesses kind of stemmed from that. So you got your own properties, you've got design, some consultative things, some coaching. I want to jump back and you said you were in sales. So what was your original sales job? It was, I think you said in Dallas. What were you doing?
So I was more or less like a business development rep. So setting appointments for inside and outside sales reps. And so I was making 35 grand a year. And then with each appointment, I said I made like 50 bucks in commission. So I thought 35 grand a year was pretty good out of college back then. Now I'm like, I could barely live off of that in Dallas. So it was like, a little bit of a struggle. But yeah, it was a lot of cold calling. I was selling, it was more or less like a reseller for a data center and data center networking equipment to enterprise customers. So just a lot of calls out to, CTOs, director of technology at different businesses across the States.
It doesn't sound to me like a very lucrative commission structure.
Not for the business development rep, but yeah, you can make decent money as you getting really, you have to be in outside sales and customer facing, closing deals. So yeah, some of those guys did really well. And I actually ended up, a few jobs later, I got into an outside rep position because my goal was to make more money at that point, so I could invest more. So I actually job hopped several times over the next several years after that.
Nice. So when was the day that like you achieved financial freedom because your rental property surpassed your income, or what did that day look like to you? And like, was it kind of a super fulfilling thing? Like, walk me through that.
Yeah, so I guess two pivotal moments. 12 months after we bought our first ever rental, we had scaled to 3 properties, and we had over 14 grand in net cash flow in that month. And that was even during COVID. So 2 of the properties were kind of slow, being in an urban market. And then the other is in more of a vacation market, which was booming, during that time. So that was amazing. And that didn't replace our income, but it certainly paid for all of our expenses and more. So that's really the true financial freedom, like phase 1 financial freedom, I'll call it. And then the second pivotal moment was when we decided to quit our jobs. We were netting around 30 grand a month from 4 rentals. And we were fully sustained, just kind of living life however we wanted at that point, which is great. We had a little extra disposable income. We made enough to where we continued to invest, so on and so forth.
Yeah, we had a Cameron Lamb on the podcast a while ago. I'm not sure if you know him, but he's like
Yeah.
his brand was like passive income golfer, and he was talking. It was really interesting to me because he was discussing how he reached financial independence, and he just like ended up playing golf all the time, and then he realized that like he kind of lost his sense of purpose, and it wasn't everything that he kind of chalked it up to be. So he started, another venture with his trash can business, valet trash business. And it kind of just reminds me of like how we're wired as people. Like we have to have a purpose, we have to have a mission, we have to have a goal, we have to have something that we're chasing at the end of the day. So I guess my question on that is like, how was your transition to financial freedom? Because you started a whole bunch of other businesses. Did you reach a phase where you're like, hey, because I know you play golf and stuff too. Did you reach a point where you're like, hey, I'm going to retire and take a year off, and then you just got bored with it and started all these other ventures, or did you have a phase kind of like that?
A little bit. Yeah, I mean, I never necessarily saw myself just like sitting on a beach with a cocktail in my hand 24/7, but I do like to travel. So my wife and I took advantage of that greatly, especially that first year before we, started having kids. But I think, the whole financial freedom aspect really changed for me. Initially, it was, I just want to make enough so I can quit my job and then figure out kind of what's next for me. And it's really the freedom to kind of choose what you want to do next. I think a lot of people make the mistake, not a mistake, but have this preconceived notion that, yeah, I'm just going to sit around and do nothing or just golf every day, but you may get a little bored. I think you need to pursue a hobby or find a new passion. And the beauty of that is maybe it's entrepreneurship, start a business, is you don't have the pressure to make a ton of money from whatever it is you want to start. So it's a lot more enjoyable, in my opinion, when you don't have that pressure of I have to make a profit every month in order to just put food on the table. So I already had that coming in. So I think it actually helped me scale all these businesses 10 times faster than if I had that pressure of this is like do or die for me and my family.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And it wasn't like you weren't just doing things just to make money. It was like, hey, I've already got the income coming in. Now I get to pick and choose what I want to do. So I love that. I do want to pivot because I think as of today, I think you're the individual with the biggest social media following in regards to output and content that we've had on our show. So I know that's a big discussion for a lot of people. Me personally, I've been building my personal brand for a while now. So I want to see like how did all the content creation get started? And I guess my main question is what was for our listeners that are trying to build, a personal brand and take their content to the next level. Any insight or any tips that you can provide that like kind of helped you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I think for me, what really started to take off was just being transparent about, for example, what I was doing, the numbers behind it, how I was doing it, how I found success. Because a lot of people are a little bit more reserved in that manner, or just kind of want to show maybe some of the flashy stuff, but they don't show a little bit of the nitty gritty, and they're not as relatable. So the biggest personal brands or business brands and the most loyal follower base are the ones where they can relate to that person or to that company or that brand. So I talk a lot about my family, what I'm doing, how I've been able to build what I've built, and just how can I help people? How can I provide value to them? Whether it's, getting into real estate or, whatever it is. So that was a big thing for me. And then you just have to be consistent, because I posted on YouTube for a year straight with like no traction, multiple times a week. My whole thing was, I'll post on YouTube. I'll just do general finance. I was a big fan of like Graham Stephan's YouTube channel, and I didn't know it was going to come of it. Maybe I'll make some money on ads. I didn't really know. It wasn't until like a year into that I started posting on TikTok, where that was just easier for me. I would just talk to the camera and say, like, here's how much money I made last month, and here's the property, here are the photos, here's how I did it, here's why it's renting, here are the strategies I'm using. And I think that helped resonate with a lot of folks who were trying to get started in that. So then I had people reaching out to me, and I was doing free consultations, turned into paid consultations, kind of led to a lot of these other business initiatives. So you can't really just chase the outcome first. You really have to focus on building and just taking that next pivotal step in your journey, whether it be social media or anything else. But I think being relatable is really important.
So my big takeaways is being relatable. Consistency obviously is huge because you need to consistently do this over a long period of time, and you probably didn't gain traction immediately, right? And then I think the biggest takeaway is providing value, is like kind of pulling back the curtain and maybe showing where you lost a little bit, and then showing like, hey, I did this and it's not as hard as it's made out to be if you learn how to run your numbers and do that kind of stuff. So yeah, I love that, man. I've been following you for a while, so yeah, man. Let's talk about your coaching community. Tell me just a little bit about that, and how you're also providing value, not necessarily from a content perspective, but you're also you have your own community, or you have your consulting that you help people out. So for our listeners, that for most part, our listeners are maybe property managers or STR owners between maybe 1 and 50 properties, maybe under management. Maybe if they're listening and they want to kind of find out more about your coaching program, what's that look like?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I started out, like I said, just doing free consults, and I never thought I would build any type of educational platform for people. But after a while, I got asked so much that I put something together. First started out as a video course, which a lot of people do. And then over time, I realized people valued mentorship and coaching, like actual real time help, and kind of getting in the weeds, rolling up our sleeves together, figuring stuff out. So that transitioned into one-on-one coaching and ultimately to what it is today. So B&B Investor Academy is one of the largest short-term rental coaching and mentorship groups in the world. And we've helped people acquire well over $500 million in real estate at the individual level. And we teach everything from buying, rental arbitrage, co-host management, legal, not necessarily legal, but we have legal aspects where we help people with like asset protection structures, just the basics, and a lot of tax strategy too. And yeah, so it's very coaching intensive. And we host over 30 coaching calls a month across different topics that are live over Zoom, direct feedback, one-on-one support, help. And yeah, we work with people from anywhere from like 20 years old who don't have much money to we've worked with professional athletes, some of the bigger names like in their sports in the world, which is really cool and fascinating. It's just cool to see all these different walks of life. Everyone's interested in real estate. Everyone's interested, regardless of their income or their net worth, they're still interested in building something for themselves. There's something special about short-term rentals, right? I mean, you kind of put your own flavor and twist. People take a lot of pride in creating that experience for the guests. So we work with people from all over the world, all over different walks of life, and it's really cool.
When did you realize, like, was there a moment that you realized that, hey, you had to like create this community, or you had to like start charging for your time, right? Because once you start building the social media, you start building the social media brand. I'm starting to, experience this myself, where a lot of people are reaching out. They're like, "Hey, can we jump on a call? Can we do this? Can we do this?" And you want to help as many people as you can, right? But at the same time, at some point, like you have to weed out people that aren't actually serious, and you have to start charging for your time. So, was there a moment when you were there, you were just an influx of too much people wanting your time, and you're like, "Hey, this is how I kind of need to set it up going forward," or what did that look like?
Yeah. Honestly, it came a lot from people just offering to pay for my time, or can you build something that I can follow or coach me? Um, and at the end of the day, like I love mentoring and coaching, whether there's money involved or not. But it's a great business opportunity for me, and to build something of value. And when people are paying you money to receive coaching and mentorship, they are that much more bought in. I've had a lot of old friends or family people reach out, and I'll do free calls and free coaching, but 99% of the time they never really do anything with it because they don't have skin in the game. And that's fine. I'm happy to provide, advice or share personal experiences that may help them kind of get started and scale. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's really awesome to work with people who are action takers, and they're invested, like financially invested in their future. For this venture, or any other type of coaching. And I've paid for tons of coaching. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching to help grow business, real estate, masterminds. Some are great and some are okay. You just kind of have to figure out what you need. And, if coaching is a good fit, I mean, I highly recommend it to anyone. If you're looking to grow anything that you don't know how to do yet, pay someone who's done it before. It's going to drastically shorten the time period for you to get where you want to go.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I'm in a number of mastermind groups, and I think that the price that I've ever paid for any of them the return has been there significantly versus what I've paid. I've met someone in the group that was able to help me, or I was able to find shortcuts through other people's mistakes that they've made. I think maybe it just gets a lot of negative stigma because there's a lot of people out there that haven't done the thing, and they're
Yeah.
scamming, and they haven't done it. They don't have actual physical business. They don't have the receipts, but maybe they built a brand online. So, there's a lot of scammers out there, but then there's people like you that are actually building a good community. And I think you also said it very well. Like, there's all these, I personally, like, if I sign up for a free webinar or something like you're going to offer, there's a chance I'm probably not even going to get on it. But when I know that I paid for it and I have skin in the game, like, hey, I'm paying for this monthly, like I need to get on it. So there's that accountability perspective. So I think I wouldn't even join anything for free for that reason. I would want to pay for it because that I know there's a mental component for me that, like, I've got to be there and I've got to show up. So, uh, I like that. And I also like encourage people, like we manage about 65 homes, but I got started in the vacation rental space for managing them by doing it myself. So my advice to anyone that wants to get into this is, like, maybe it's an unpopular opinion, maybe not. I mean, you can go out and property manage, but I feel like you really should do it yourself first if you want people to take you seriously, right? Like, you need to own a short-term rental asset if you want to be a co-host or a property manager. You need to learn the skill sets and make those mistakes on yourself, and if before you want anyone to be able to trust you with their property, right? So I'm a big proponent of, like, I like what you said about having skin in the game first. Yeah, man. So good stuff there.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add on that, but I I just always reiterate, if like it's kind of like people go to college, pay a ton of money, and a lot of people will like interview to work with us in one aspect or another, and it's a fraction of what they paid for college, right? And it's like, you paid all this money for college and you got maybe a result you were hoping for, maybe not, and you could invest a smaller sum of money. Like, there's no money better spent than investing in yourself or a specific skill set. Whether you're trying to be better at sales, go pay a mentor who's a stud at sales, because it's going to have a drastic impact on your performance and your commissions, right? And your ability to sell. So whatever it is, I mean, you could basically buy a skill and buy the time back, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a reel the other day. I think it was like Dean Graciosi or something. He was telling his kids or something, somebody like that. some big time guy, and he was telling his kids, he's like, hey, like talking about college and stuff. Hey, if you're not going to college to be like an engineer, doctor, lawyer, something of that nature, he opened up my mind to like this. It's like, hey, you should offer your services for free to go work for somebody or work under somebody because you're going to pay all this money for college. So he was like, I'll pay for my kids' living expenses and all that stuff. Instead of sending them to college, I'll tell them to go work for free for somebody. Like if they wanted to do something like interior design. Go work for the best interior designer you could possibly get a job with and work for free for 3 to 4 years. And I just feel like that is just the new move. I just feel like college is becoming less and less valuable, especially with things like AI and ChatGPT, like everything you can really learn on your own. And now I have a college degree, so I can say that. But also at the same time, there are those fields like, medical, you want to be a doctor, you want to be an engineer, you want to be a lawyer, specific practices where, okay, college makes sense at that point. But I just think there's so many different fields and they have a degree for everything now, right? That doesn't even, a lot of them don't even make sense. So I just feel like who knows what college is going to look like over the next decade if it's really going to be, a thing. Like, is it really going to be as popular as when we were? Because we're probably about the same age. It was a regular thing to go to college. Our parents, same thing. Is it, losing value? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a major shift happening in the education space right now, for sure.
Yeah, they don't teach you stuff that actually translates into the real world. Like 90% of what you're taught in like elementary school and high school. I mean, I can't apply any of that anymore, right? They don't teach you
Yeah.
how to buy real estate assets. They don't teach you how to do your taxes. They don't teach you how to do all this stuff that actually really moves the needle, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the way I think about it too is, I had good grades, but like a lot of that stuff I never really learned. And what I mean by that is I learned how to study and test well. And that's really all we're trained to do from a pretty young age, all the way through college. So it's a much more valuable thing to find a passion for learning, and then putting what you learned into practice in whatever way that looks. But you're forced to do that as an entrepreneur, for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think the education, there's going to be a major shift.
Yeah, if you had to pick like on the multiple business avenues that you're into, if you had to pick one that gives you the most fulfillment and enjoyment out of all the ones that you're doing, which one would you pick and why?
They're all fulfilling, but the one that gives me the most is the education side, just because it's you can make such an impact on someone's life. If they may be depressed, down in the dumps, marriage is falling apart, finances not in order, and you spark a new interest and passion for somebody and help them get across the finish line and create wealth or generational wealth for their family. And they're doing that for themselves. I'm just part of the journey, like a blip on the journey for them to help spark that initial interest and get them off the ground. But that's probably the most fulfilling, when you could help somebody build an actual income source that's not entirely reliant on their time, and build wealth, save on taxes, do all these things that they never thought were possible for them, only wealthy people. So that's probably number one. The secondary thing, if I may add to that, is as an employer, it's really fulfilling helping people grow their skill sets, grow as a person, across all my businesses. Like we've had a salesperson, and I won't mention their name, and this is probably a private thing, but my business partner said he had a one-on-one with them in our in-person event meeting that we had all the employees come in for a couple of weeks ago, and he's been killing it for us. He's making a ton of money in commissions, but he said that he only had like a few grand in his bank account, and he was like tearing up telling my business partner this when he applied for the job. So I think he was in between jobs, and his wife was 2 weeks away, or maybe 2 months away from their first baby being born. So talk about being like a rock in a hard place. Kid has a killer attitude, killer skill set, and he just was hunting an opportunity, and it just happened to work out with us, and he's crushing it now. So he's made a major impact on our business. But just to hear that feedback loop from him saying how much of an impact, like a life-changing thing this has been for him, I don't see that think about that day to day until like it comes back and hits me when somebody actually tells us something like that. So like, aside from just helping clients, like helping people grow as a people, make more money, support their families, like it's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate thing right there that fills up your cup. And I think that's a transparent with a lot of people is having a direct impact on someone's life. Do you have any do you have care to share any success stories that you might have, like maybe one student that you have, like run me through what they did when they started with you and how did that look when they went through your program? Have any good success stories worth sharing for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, we have a ton. They kind of all start to sound similar. I mean, that hopefully that doesn't sound bad, but like mostly it's somebody comes in, they have no experience, where they have a little money, a lot of money, and they finally get that first property. Like they overcome the stress and anxiety, because it's a big personal risk to take, at least presumably, right? To fork up like all your savings into one property to hope that it works out, even if you're following the right blueprint. But we've had a couple people with like major success that I could highlight that started with like nothing. In terms of short-term rentals, no short-term rentals. Like one, and now he actually runs the fulfillment for my program. His name's Logan West. He was the first ever one-on-one coaching client I had. So I had the video course several years ago. I was living in a camper van, and he hit me up. I think he found me on TikTok, and he told his wife he was going to like pay me for mentorship. I didn't even know how to price it. I was like, how does, X dollars sound? He said, sure, it sounds good. Coached him for a year. He's an action taker. And this is the biggest difference between people who are ultra successful, whether it be short-term rentals, business, career, and not, is that he just took what he learned and he took immediate action. It was almost like a shoot then aim type of mindset, but he got a rental arbitrage unit. He was cash flowing like $3 to $4 grand a month on that. He sold 2 of his long-term rentals that he had that were netting like $100 or $200 a month. So he quickly scaled up to like 4 properties in the first year. And fast forward 4 years, he now has 28, and his goal is to be 30 properties under 30 years old. And he's going to hit that. And most of those properties were from pitching other investors that he met along the way, and partnering with no money out of his own pocket. So it's really fascinating to see somebody go from, hey, I have no experience, I'm going to pay this guy I found on TikTok. And he just, I don't need to take much credit for him at all. He just took action and like went with it. And it's so cool to see somebody just in a short period of time have many millions of dollars assets under management and cash flow and a ton of money.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that you said it well. Like you got to just get out there and take action. Like even if the first time you do something you lose money, so be it. Like you're going to learn from it, right? So I love that, man. I love that story. So if you're like, let's talk about your investments. Are you in multiple markets? Is my first question. I guess my first question is, what markets are you in? And then do you self manage all your properties as well?
Yeah. So we have 10 properties going on 12 with the 200 contract. They're in multiple markets. Nashville, Gatlinburg, Western North Carolina, Hilton Head Island, Myrtle Beach, Texas, Florida, South Florida. So a bunch of different markets. And I like doing a couple in each market because it diversifies regulatory risk. It also diversifies seasonality and cash flow. So as I grew, I kind of like the idea of, even if we're killing it in one market, to maybe diversify into a market where there's a different regulatory environment, but also seasonality. Because if a natural disaster comes, which it hit in Western North Carolina, we had like almost 100 grand in cancellations due to that we didn't get any of that money, but we had other properties in other markets that were unaffected. So that was part of that strategy. And we self-managed up to 6 properties. And then that's when we started our management company, Home Team Luxury Rentals. And that was from a former student that I taught, back in 2021. And another great example of taking it and running with it. So he got several properties on his own, partnered with some people, and then started co-hosting properties in North Carolina for some folks. And then he messaged me because I was doing some marketing for another management company, just like affiliate, like a marketing deal, like a brand deal, basically. And he said, trade that company for me. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? You trade me for that. I'm not even doing anything for that. I just did some videos, And then so I was like, well, what if we partnered on it? I didn't really have any interest in property management. And so we just partnered up, and fast forward almost 3 years now, we have over 400 properties under management. So my team now manages my properties. I'm still pretty involved, and I keep up with, some of the guest messaging just as I see it come in, if I need to step in, because some of our properties are high caliber properties. But yeah, we have a big team now that helps with the maintenance and the guest communication and the turns and cleaning and all that jazz.
So you have 400 properties under management. That's incredible. I didn't even know that your management company was that big. So that's awesome. And are these hyper focused in one market, or are these also spread out in markets you're invested in? I guess where are your management units at?
Yeah, we're nationwide. Certainly, we have a few regions or states that we're more highly concentrated in, like Arizona, Texas, Florida, the Carolinas, Tennessee, and a few other markets that we have a bigger presence in. But we manage properties all over the country.
So, how did you scale to 400? How was your sales process? Like, how did you scale to 400 units over time? Like, what are you doing from a marketing perspective? Because that's pretty impressive, man. Like, how long have you been managing? How long have you had your property management company? I guess.
It'll be, I think, 3 years now. Yeah.
So
So
you went from
started out like,
so in 3 years you went to 400 properties in 3 years.
yeah, this isn't crazy. So
Holy shit!
100 units came through an acquisition. We bought a management company out. Um,
Wow,
the
gotcha.
rest were all organic. So, as you start and you guys experience this, we bootstrapped it a lot. We had a few people I don't push our management company on the education side. We teach people how to self-manage. But we had some come over, and then my business partner bootstrapped a lot. So this is good advice. And you guys probably share this all the time, but if you own or operate properties in a market, you can go find out what other properties are making, who's managing them. And then more or less door knock per se, but get their contact info, ask them how it's going, tell them how you're doing and what you think their property could be making. And more than likely, they're going to be kind of interested to hear what you have to say. There's still some sales aspect too. You still have to close them on YU, but that's how we did it for the first, maybe 50 to 100 properties. Then we had the acquisition. And then ever since then, over the past 2 years, we built a sales team internally. So we actually do a lot of cold calling and just old school sales. A lot of the big PMs will do a lot of paper mail marketing or SMS or SEO and stuff like that. And then our done for you service called B&B Turnkey, where we actually go find the property for people, analyze the deals. They pick the one they want. They own it 100%. My design firm designs it. We manage the construction, set it up to be a top performer. And then we manage it on the back end for them. So that has been amazing for us and for clients. They get a done for you product, cash flowing property. They get the tax benefits, all that. And then we get to add A+ properties that are hand curated to be awesome revenue producers and provide amazing experiences to travelers, and add that to our portfolio. So that's like taken us from like 200 properties to 400 over the past 12 months. And we have another 100+ properties in the pipeline right now, either being onboarded or in the turnkey process. So we should be at over 500 by the end of Q3, maybe end of Q4.
So since you have all this business, your next business is going to be teaching people a sales funnel on how you're acquiring all these properties so quickly. So you're going to set the CRM up for them, and they're going to do this, and then they're going to pay you, right?
Yeah, that could be a good business line. I've thought about that. I've paid for coaching on, how to build sales orgs and market. It's a lot of different things, but the biggest piece of advice I have for anyone who's out there who's like scaling their own business is you need to hire the right people and at the right times. A lot of us get so caught up and do everything ourselves to save money, and I'm going to bootstrap it. And then anytime I've hired a key employee and paid them good money, the business is like 2, 3, 4, 5x that much faster, because it takes so much off your plate. And frankly, they're probably, if they have experience, they're going to do it that line of the business, whether it's marketing, sales, fulfillment, they're going to do it better than you anyway. So that way you can focus on driving the ship. So a ton of credit is owed to really all of our employees, frankly, as we filled those roles, and then they people manage and build SOPs and do all these things. The business has really grown a ton since we've been able to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Put people in the right seats and let them do their thing, right? So I love that. But I want to go back to talking about this acquisition. You don't have to talk specific numbers unless you want to, but that's really what I want to get at. Is like, What did that look like? How did you identify this management company? And how did you go about buying it? Just walk me through the process and how you knew, like, hey, I could come in and make it more profitable. Really, the main question is here is just let me know how did the acquisition process go from, hey, I'm going to buy a management company? Like, walk me through that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were looking for a way to scale quicker at the time. We are not as keen on looking for new acquisitions now just because our organic is so strong. Because there's a lot of nuance and pain you have to go through with an acquisition and merging cultures and systems and everything like that. But we went through a broker dealer. They're awesome. C2G Advisors, owner's name's Jacoby Olin. He's become a friend of ours. He lives in Nashville or near Nashville, Tennessee. So he actually brought deals to us that were in the size range that we were looking for. And then we just looked at the company's revenue and all their expenses, P&Ls and everything. And there was like a lot of old PMs are kind of archaic, for lack of better words. I mean, they were changing pricing manually, and then their property management software was like a software that you have to download and like put on a computer. It wasn't cloud-based. It wasn't Guesty or Hostfully or any of these other big ones out there. So it was so much manual work, and they had a lot of overhead that wasn't necessary. And then dynamic pricing was one. They weren't listed on all the right channels, and like their listings weren't appealing. And then, some of the properties were okay, some were great. So that was the biggest like quick win per se, and how to boost revenue was to just really implement a lot of the software and systems that we're using, which is fairly cheap and readily available for anyone to use. And then the pricing strategy was a big one as well.
Yeah, I figured that's why I asked that question because I figured there were some key indicators, like exactly like you said, dynamic pricing. Maybe they still have, you know, outdated 10-year-old photos, whatever the case may be. I figured there was like something in this that you're like, this is low-hanging fruit. Like they have some pretty good properties. Did you end up keeping all of the properties in the acquisition, or like if certain properties didn't meet your buy box, you maybe had to do away with them, or what did that look like?
Yeah, I think we kept all the properties. Not all of them were not all of them were the certain like the criteria that we would take on like on a one-off, right? But we kept them all on, just for the sake of the relationship they already had with those homeowners. And we had a few people homeowners leave, but honestly, the retention was very, very strong, surprisingly, because that can be a little bit rocky. In acquisitions, sometimes homeowners will leave. But thankfully, we're able to maintain and actually add to that portfolio the year and a half after that, which was great. So we worked well with them. But the culture thing, like, you need to make sure if they're going to stay on, like employees and maybe the people who are selling the company, if they're going to stay on for a year or two, which I recommend they do because they know everything about their business and they can help with the transition. They've been pretty good to work with, and adopting and blending the cultures per se. So that's really important.
I love that. Is there any of your businesses that you don't enjoy as much? Certain businesses maybe you started and you're like, if I go back in time, maybe I would do away with this one, or I'm looking to sell this one, maybe perhaps.
Not right now. I mean, there's a couple startup ventures. I get asked all the time, just having a larger social media following and brand. A lot of people reach out to me with different ideas or investment opportunities. And there's been a few that I've invested in or, had joined and then had to like take a step back, because I think early on I was very eager to kind of just be the yes man. Like, oh, that sounds cool. Like, sure, I'll see if I can help blow this up. But it takes a lot more than just like a name on social media to help blow a brand up. And you have to have good strategy, fulfillment, sales, marketing, all of it. So I'm a lot more careful on where I say yes to or who I say yes to. But there's a couple startups I'm involved in right now. We'll see how they pan out. A lot of them I'm actually financially investing in the business too, to be an owner in the business or co-owner of the business. So I have more skin in the game. For me, that's more important, just to be aligned with where we're going, what the vision is.
Yeah. So you had to learn how to say no, and there's power in saying no, right?
Yeah, you got to protect your time, man. I mean, the whole point of the real estate stuff was to buy our time back. And then, I say yes to too many things. All of a sudden I'm like, where'd my time go? So yeah, I had to reevaluate some of that. I'm still very protective of my time. I have all these businesses, but I really try not to work more than maybe 20 to 25 hours a week, 30 plus if it's like a really busy week, sometimes a lot less. But I do have the flexibility where I could travel. My wife and I travel all the time with our kids. So we'll spend a week in multiple different locations throughout the year, doing a big international trip 1 to 2 times a year. But that goes back to having great employees and people you can count on in leadership roles to make sure that if you're the only person, you're a solopreneur, you're tied to it. It makes it really challenging to like unplug and the business not fall apart.
Yeah. So let's talk about your day to day. Any non-negotiables for you, like things that you got to do, whether it be working out, your sauna, like what do you do, like your reading, like is there anything for you that's like, hey, I gotta get dialed. This is how I get dialed in. I do this every day. Any kind of non-negotiables in your daily routine? Sorry, that
Non-negotiable.
was a really one-off
No, you're
one-off
good. Yeah,
question, but
non-negotiables for
curious.
me. I mean, I spend time with my kids, so unless it's something I can't take it at any other time, I usually never take a call before 10 or 11 a.m. So I'm with my kids until then, and then Mondays and Tuesdays I'll stack meetings. So then I'll have or coaching calls. Those are my busiest days. Wednesdays is usually a fairly clean slate, or I'll be able to add stuff, do creative work. And then Fridays, I never have anything on my calendar. And then Thursdays, usually like 1 or 2 meetings. So workout wise, I usually work out, 3 to 4, maybe 5 times a week. Non-negotiable, I, eat very clean, like whole foods. I'm very bought into like being in tune with my body. My wife, the same thing, like what we're putting into our body, even like what we put on our skin, like lotion wise, you know what I'm saying? So, we're big into that, just trying to like create longevity for ourselves, be the best version of ourselves we can. So it's more of a lifestyle thing versus like, I don't have a strict day-to-day routine. We have two kids under 3 years old. So you can't really, other than maybe like general nap schedules, that's like the only routine we have. It's kind of chaotic.
Yeah, I have a 3-month-old, first one. So figuring that out and the scheduling and everything has been pretty dialed, and we're great. We're a great teamwork. But any advice for me there? I get for me as a dad and with a young son. Anything? Any takeaways? I'm sure you just
Ah,
went through the ringer around that
yeah,
not
I
too
mean,
long ago.
you figure it out and what works for you parenting wise. But I think just being present as much as possible is important, and fully present as well, and just pouring into your kids and into their development and making them smile and laugh every day. There's nothing better. So that's really all I have.
Awesome, man. I love that. I think Matt joined us again. He fell off for most of the
That's
episode,
like
but
the
well,
sixth time.
well, welcome back, Matt. I'm glad you
Thanks.
decided to show up today.
Yeah, I had to download a new browser and everything. I don't know what's going on today. Um, Actually, I did have a couple questions, and I don't know what I missed. Obviously, I wasn't here. I'll catch up when I edit the episode. Um, so out of the 10 businesses you do have, what is your favorite one? If Austin did not ask you that, did you ask him that,
Uh,
Yeah,
Austin?
we
You're
did. Yeah,
smiling.
we
Kind
asked
of,
Oh,
him.
yeah.
never
Really,
mind.
more the most fulfilling one being like the educational one, just because you make like the most direct impact and have the most interaction with people at the individual level. But they all tie into each other so much and feed off each other. Um, the most exciting long-term play is probably the Rise Collective, which encompasses the management company, just because there's a really cool opportunity down the line for either a minority or majority exit in the business, to where our families could be completely set for life, and we just build something awesome that's really profitable, that either another company or a private equity firm may have interest in, kind of like joining forces basically and buying a large portion of the business. So that's really exciting, just on the financial side of things long term.
Yeah, and then my other question was, I mean, I've been following you on TikTok as you were building your brand and you're, traveling around in your van and, just traveling around the country, and that was pretty cool. But my question was, what was the hardest part about you building your brand? Like, what was the most difficult thing about it, and what actually motivated you to do that, to
I
go in
don't
that
know. Honestly,
direction?
the motivation side was, I was just kind of I was sharing what I was learning, what I was doing day to day or month to month. And I niched down. At first, it started out as like general finance, which I honestly kind of hated. I don't know why I decided to do that. And then I started talking more about short term rentals with the more properties I got. And as I niched down, people had a much stronger interest in that because they were following me for that specifically. And then they get bought into like everything else going on in your life, you know, family, travel, kids, just because that's what makes you relatable. Um, so that's how it started. And then now it's such a powerful tool. And I didn't have any businesses really at the time when I started on social media, but a personal brand is the most powerful thing you can have in terms of marketing. And it even ties into if you do paid marketing, paid advertising, because there's like retargeting, there's all sorts of things there, and having like a presence on different channels. So it has been critical for the growth of all of our businesses if you leverage it the right way. There's a lot of people who have major brands and they don't really make any money on it. And it's just like, you know, more or less a hobby, in my opinion. Mine's very specific now on driving the business forward, helping people get started and you know, in their real estate journey. But certainly as a marketing tool and growth tool.
I mean, I think you built one hell of a brand. I mean, honestly, I mean, when I met you, I knew you because I saw you on TikTok. You were a lot taller. I will say, I was like, holy shit, you're a
I
lot
get that
taller than
all the
I thought.
time. It's so funny. Maybe
Yeah, dude, you do not look that tall because I'm tall and you're taller than me, and I'm like, holy shit, he's way up there. Like, you
for
don't
the
see
record,
that.
I'm like
But
7 feet tall. I'm just kidding.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. It feels that way when you're six
No,
foot
no.
and he's towering above you. It honestly feels that way. Um, so what was so throughout everything that you've done throughout your entrepreneurial journey and everything else, what was the biggest like L you took, like the biggest mistake, the biggest like loss? Oh, and I guess not L because you probably learned something, but what was like, just that skull crushing
Um,
moment?
I'll say, you know, there's knock on wood, I haven't had any like major L's business wise. There's been a few properties I bought that I didn't do all my due diligence on. So we ran into some, you know, headwinds and sold one, trying to sell another. But outside of that, the biggest learning moment I've had was not knowing what the possibilities were within business or as an entrepreneur as my brand grew. I was very green to that and very naive. So even though I was making good money at the time, just kind of passively doing some coaching and course stuff and some affiliate marketing, I was so blind to the fact that I could make a fairly large business out of it. And what happened was I coached a few people for free, helped them get their first several short-term rental properties. And one person in specific started selling a program, which is fine. He has the right to do that. But he was initially like helping me market mine and didn't really run it by me. So it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But the beauty of this lesson was he was making like way more money than me. And I was like, what the hell? Like, what are you doing that I don't know? So then I took it serious.
Hmm.
And that was like a complete turning point. In my business, I invested a bunch of money into a coaching program, which is going back to what Austin and I were talking about earlier, investing in coaching and mentorship to build specific skill sets or learn to people who have already done what you're trying to do. And my business, golly, I mean, it over 10x'd in, I think, 2 months after paying for that program. And has since then, like, you know, 3 or 4x, you know, time and time again, which is pretty crazy. So that was the biggest learning moment for me was I don't need to try and figure it all out on my own. Like, frankly, I'd rather spend a ton of my own money or a little bit of my own money paying for that knowledge and mentorship and skill set. That way I can go deploy it in a much faster time frame and reach the goal much sooner. And I've applied that across all my businesses. And it's in all aspects of life, frankly. It's even if you're trying to get like in better shape, like don't just blindly show up at the gym and walk on a treadmill and pick up a dumbbells for 10 minutes. Maybe it's something with diet or macros. Like if you don't know how to do macronutrients, like now you go to ChatGPT, but like maybe hire a health coach or a nutritionist or something to get that dialed in. You can do it way faster without the guesswork, without the stress of doing it. So you can apply that across all areas of life. But that was certainly the biggest learning moment for me.
Yeah, just put it all into Chat GPT, create a channel for yourself, and
Everything.
uh, do diet, right? Have it write you a diet plan, have it write you a workout plan, upload your blood work in there. Man, all that stuff. I've done that, and it's been that's been my rabbit hole lately, and it's been wild. I just put my blood work in there, and it wrote me like where I'm deficient and what vitamins and all this stuff, and I don't know,
That's
it's very
crazy.
interesting. Yeah, the use cases for Chat GPT, they just keep getting they just there's more and more every day. Or AI in general. Right.
And it
Oh
tells
yeah.
you it may make mistakes too, and you're like, who's going to read all this to find out where the mistake is? To do your research again. You're already you're already asking it for the answer. Let me
Yeah.
validate this. That's killer. Well, I guess we'll just wrap it up because I missed the whole episode, so I apologize for that. And I probably asked the same questions were already asked to you, but you handled yourself very well. So I truly appreciate your time, and I'm sure that Austin appreciates your time. If you want to let everybody know where they can follow you and find you, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Feel free to hit me up on Instagram. It's probably the best place, but it's just at melefante6 or Michael Elefante. And yeah, I'm pretty present there. So if you guys ever want to shoot me a note, just DM me.
Sweet. Thank you so much once again, and I'll let Austin take us out.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Peace.